on the journey of an entrepreneur. We help you, the small business owner, get tips from other professionals, from experts on how to build a business more effectively. Every day I help sell insurance to business owners, but I also love to give them advice on how to make their businesses more successful. We are back with the journey of an entrepreneur. This is Esther Tanez, CEO of ESTIRInc Insurance Agency, talking to small businesses here locally. And today I get to talk to Debbie Schaeffer.
Hi, Esther.
Hi.
Thank you so much for including me. I've been watching your videos, so I'm so excited to be on your video. It's awesome.
I'm so excited that you accepted the invitation. I was reading a little bit about your story on your website, and I did not know that this was your grandparents.
Yes.
Oh my God, you got to tell me all about it. So it's been how long now?
It's a great story. So we're actually celebrating our 83rd year in business. Grandparents started it in 1935 in Trenton, New Jersey.
Wow.
And we're here now, here in Lawrence Township, New Jersey. Actually moved our last location. We've had 4 locations, total? 1 store.
Oh.
Trenton, we went to Ewing, then we were in Lawrence Township, not too far from here, about a mile up the road, for about 42 years. And we just moved about 4 years ago into this new location. So it's actually not new anymore.
Right.
I can't believe it's been 4 years already. Yes.
But I love how easy access. You know, when I was coming up Route 1, I just made the little loop and boop, I was right here.
Absolutely. There are so many great reasons why I came to this location. We moved off the last location because the property was being redeveloped. Okay. And I was going to move back as part of the redevelopment. But we're next to Worldwide Flooring here on the corner of Darrow Lane and Route 1. And Worldwide gave me an offer that I really couldn't refuse. This was a loading dock and warehousing that he really wasn't using, and loved the synergy between the appliance store and flooring and carpet and wood, etc., and wanted to make this into a retail showroom. So we worked together, and I was really able to create the latest showroom. I did a lot of research to make this an experience center, a really wonderful showroom where people would love to come just to look, not just to buy.
Right.
Really feel good about coming here and throwing events. So everything was planned, as well as when you talk about the traffic, very easy for our customers to get in and out of, as well as I needed a place where a lot
Yes,
to
parking
park,
lot.
because as you know, I throw a lot of great parties here.
She does.
And with the chamber, with a lot of nonprofits, and for events for my industry partners, like the kitchen designers and architects, etc. And so I needed a lot of parking as well. Because sometimes we'll have up to 200 people here.
Wow. Well, the store is beautiful. We'll be showing you how beautiful it looks and all the beautiful appliances, Zero, Wolf, and all those high-end. But let's go back.
Okay.
So now your grandparents started this business. I read a little bit that there was a fire, an explosion, and they had to relocate here, and that your grandfather liked to be at the cashier.
Right.
And that grandma was really the expert of not only the plumbing stuff that you used to sell before in the past with your grandparents, but then the appliances.
Right. So everybody knew my grandmother as Mrs. G. And she was very devoted to the community. And she was a pioneer. She loved to work. She loved to be part of the store. And she really was the face of the business.
Wow.
And they really worked very hard moving the store from Trenton to Ewing. And you talked about the gas explosion, which was so unfortunate. But they actually, within a day or two, they opened up in the warehouse until they could find another spot, which ultimately was on the corner here in Lawrence. And it's just a great story. And it really has to do with how she was part of the community. She adored the people who came into the store.
Aww.
She always knew who they were. I mean, generations of customers. She worked here until she was 96.
Oh my goodness.
It's a great, and she loved it. And sometimes 7 days a week, because she just loved to be here and be part of the community. And
such a big part of her life, right?
Such a big part of her life.
So because the show is geared to people who are starting their business or already running their business, it's for all small business owners or startups, I like to talk about some of the lessons learned, right? So here you are, your grandparents are, you know, well, how smart to have a backup location. I mean, we talk about that. Even I'm in the insurance business, and we talk about the importance of having that second backup location. But your grandparents, back in what year? In the 1930s, you're saying?
Well, they started in 1935.
Right.
Yes.
And the fire happened.
And the fire happened in the early 60s.
Okay.
Yes.
And they knew back then to let's take our warehouse and revamp it into a store until we find a location.
Exactly. No, well, that's my grandmother. I mean, that's how she, you know, she just didn't want to stop. She really wanted to keep going.
It's so smart because studies show that if your business is closed 30 days, it takes you 6 months to recuperate.
Exactly.
If it takes 3 months closed, you're almost out of business.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you lose all that flow. Very smart.
No,
so here she is. She finds a place. She revamps a new location, and she's the floor person. I heard. I mean, I was reading it that she's really the expert.
Now, her desk was always up front by the front door.
Wow.
She did have an office. She rarely used it.
Wow.
And she always loved to greet the customers coming through the door, especially talk to the customers when they were ready to leave. If they didn't buy, she was the ultimate closer.
Oh, wow.
She would always make sure if there was anything more that she could do, and I would say she was extremely successful.
Look how smart. And
Very.
we talk about that in customer service, the importance of connecting with your clients. And she knew that innately. Like, you know, I'm sure she wasn't reading books back then to worry about how can I connect with my clients. She was warm and caring and loved her industry, her career.
And
That's
helped
fantastic.
out a lot of people, a lot of individual people. You know, people who wanted to start a business, they needed a refrigerator and they couldn't afford it. She would sit down with them. She would get to know them, feel comfortable with them, and they'd walk out with the refrigerator paying $5 a week or whatever it was. And I can't tell you the stories. Even to this day, there is not a day that doesn't go by that I don't hear a great story about my grandmother and how it affected either themselves or their parents. They remember coming into the store when they were little. Yeah. And she was just fantastic and very humble, you know, very, very humble.
I think that's so key.
Yeah.
You know, arrogance doesn't work in sales, and it just doesn't work.
Right.
So tell me, so now your grandmother, as the years are passing by, and how does that happen that she says to her granddaughter, Debbie, come? How does that happen?
Well, okay, so we were extremely close. Even though I didn't work in the business right after school, college, I was always coming in here. I'm actually a civil engineer by education.
Oh, wow.
And I went off and did some construction and was on high-rise construction in New York City. And then I started a family. So I took a few years off until the girls, I have twin girls who are now 25. So when they were ready for kindergarten, I was ready to go back to work. And my grandmother and my mother, who had already retired from the business at that time, wanted me to come into the business and see if I like it, you know, and just really, just most important is they wanted to see if I like it and if we wanted to continue the business.
Right.
And that was around 2000.
Wow. Okay.
Right? And
oh wow! So it's been 18 years.
It's been 18 years. Exactly right. So it's very easy, right? And there were a couple of things that I explained to my grandmother. Well, if I'm going to stay in the business and help you, I would like to see a few changes. And that was about the luxury brands. She sold the luxury brands, but they were always in the back of the store.
A little bit more hidden.
Hidden, you know, they would have one or two pieces. And I said to my grandmother, we need to bring the luxury brands up to the front of the store, and for us to be able to compete with a lot of the big box stores that were coming in to the area at the time.
That's right.
And she, you know, gave me the go-ahead.
Oh, that's good.
And needing to make some investments in the showroom.
Oh, that's right. Now she has to buy them.
Right. So there was some investments that she, you know, was very frugal. So it wasn't so easy, but I think after a year or two that we started to make some of these changes, she saw that it really made a difference. I mean, when you think about it, I call that the Walmart effect,
Right.
and that's when back in the early, around the early 90s, when late 80s, when Walmart came in, then Home Depot, then Lowe's, Best Buy, when they all came in, they didn't just come here on the street, which they are here,
Right.
but they came in Hamilton. They also came in Pennsylvania, in Oxford Valley. So all to our delivery areas, they're surrounded by not just one business, but by 3 or 4 of the same businesses, all competing against each other.
Right.
So they just took market share, and so we had to figure out a way, how do we compete against them? And going into the luxury brands, we're here in a beautiful Sub-Zero Wolf Living Kitchen,
Yes.
and one of the great brands that we partner with, and that's really how we started
Right.
to really survive and make things work, and I started to fall in love with the business, and my grandmother kind of already knew that it was in my blood, so she already had a plan.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So here you are. This is it's a multi-generation, right? So it goes from your grandparents and it's starting to go to you, and it looks like your mom also worked here at one
Yes,
time.
she did. Yep.
And then your grandmother had and your grandfather had the mission statements, and they had their logo, and I often say you got to be ready to evolve, right? Because time changes, the dynamic of the community changes, the demographic, the social economics, everything just shifts all the time, right? And then you have to be ready to make those shifts on your small business. Competition comes in, right? All of those details. So I saw that you had a certain logo, and then it started to evolve. Were you part of that, or did you hire someone? How did that happen?
Oh, absolutely. Knowing that I was moving the store, and I did have plenty of time, knowing that I was moving the store, I thought this was the right time to update the logo.
Right.
And my grandmother had, for the Mrs. G brand, had what they call a personality logo. So
Right.
her face was introduced back in the 50s. And it evolved over time, and you can go to our website and see the evolution of the logo. But I knew that it needed to be updated for many reasons, just a refresh of the brand.
Right.
We were moving, it was a perfect time, but it also wasn't website friendly. I mean, between all the different colors, and if you wanted to go small, you wanted to go big, it just didn't have
that flexibility with the new times.
So we needed to come up with something new. And in the beginning, I wanted to refresh my grandmother's face. Now, I hired an expert branding agent, and if I recommend anything in this interview at all, if you're going to start with a new logo, you need to get an expert that is like a branding agent. That's how I explain it. His name is Raul Gutierrez, and he's local. And as you get to know me, everything that I do, I only use local businesses.
That's so good.
Raul was from here, and he just did this wonderful presentation. And through the entire time, he going, Debbie, your grandmother's been not with us for a couple years. She passed away about 8 years ago, and it should be your face. You are the face of the business. No, Raul. It's got to be my grandmother's face. I want it to be hers. She's Mrs. G. And he would come up with some designs, and it just wasn't coming together. And he would go, Debbie, let me just do you
a little,
and then if you don't like it, we can move on. And we came up with my face, and I made some changes. We still kept the Mrs. G from back in the 60s. The way the letters were written were done back in the 60s.
Right.
And Raul and I just gave us a high five, both of us, and we did it. But I actually kept that under wraps for over a year. I had a couple of focus groups, showing some of my friends, certainly my family, my mother, who loved it. And but I kept it under wraps from the community until we put the sign up here.
That's fantastic. We're here talking to Mrs. G, actually Debbie Schaeffer, talking about her story and how she took over her grandmother's business. Make sure that you follow us next week with more to come.